friends, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Stacy and I am the chapter conundrum, and man, today's video just proves how much of a conundrum I can be. So today we're going to be talking about authors that I have had very mixed experiences with. Some of the books on here are like all-time favorite books for me, and I've picked up something else by this author and just really not enjoyed it. So like we have authors on here that I've given 5 stars to as well as 2 stars to. I think there might even be one case of a 5-star and a 1-star. But essentially my criteria for an author making this video, I had to rate 2 of their different books at least 2 stars apart. So I either had to have like a 2-star and a 4-star, or like a 3-star and a 5-star. I had to have like different enough ratings or different enough memorable experiences with multiple books that they've written. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. And I think the first author I'm going to start with is one that I usually typically enjoy it, but I have a 2-star read from them, and that is Taylor Jenkins Reid. And my 2-star read is One True Loves. This made me angry. Like, I finished this and I threw the bed across the book and I was like, she doesn't even deserve this ending at this point. Like, this is ridiculous. So essentially in here, the premise is that you have a woman whose husband has been missing and then declared dead. She's moved on with her life and she's out to dinner with her fiance and abruptly gets a call that, hey, he's actually alive and he's returning home. So this is like her exploration of what should she do from here, because she's obviously got a life entangled with 2 people right now. And I thought that this was going to be really interesting and kind of like a deep exploration of like what she's going to do, what thoughts she's grappling with. No. This entire thing, even the history with one of these characters and the backstory, was like, it's so obvious who she should choose. And then when she finally makes her choice, she does it for the most like shallow reasons. It's not deep at all. It's just kind of like, really? That's why you're doing what you're doing? Like, it came off as like ridiculous to me. And then if that wasn't bad enough, she treated one of them so badly that I was just like angry. She irked me. This was not it. 2 stars. Now, my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book, on the other hand, is After I Do. And this is one that follows a married couple, but it's been like a year since they've been married and their romance has really fizzled out. They've started to get on each other's nerves. And this is kind of them deciding to take a break from each other and kind of like reevaluate things. So this one is actually an interesting exploration into the characters, how their dynamic started, how it is now, why it changed, why they think it shifted, what went wrong for each of them, and where they should go from here. This actually delivered what I wanted, promised. This was emotional. It had great themes. It had great reminders for those of us in long-term relationships not to take each other for granted. There was a lot of things in here that made this a 5-star read. Definitely recommend this one. But yeah, definitely very, very different experiences with these 2 books. 2 stars and 5 stars. The next author I'm going to talk about is Zoje Stage. And my 2-star read from her was unfortunately Wonderland, which, if you don't know, this is kind of funny. This is like one of the first books that Jake ever gifted to me, even before we were dating. So it's a good thing I didn't put too much stock into his book choices for me that early, or else we'd be in trouble. But anyhow, this one follows a married couple and their kids, and they kind of have like lived a large part of their life in New York City. But the husband in this couple is really not a city guy, and he kind of like compromised and moved and spent a lot of time in the city to be with his family, and now it's kind of like the era of it's his turn. And so they're moving upstate to a remote rural place, and it's really just kind of like them figuring out life there. But the main reason that this didn't work for, well, it's twofold. There's kind of like some iffy logic, like this guy is supposed to be outdoorsy, he's supposed to be local, he should know things. As somebody who grew up in Ontario, which is right north of New York, and who grew up in the same kind of wildlife, this guy should have known things he did not know. It had shaky logic at times for like things that are common knowledge for those of us who did grow up in that situation, so that frustrated me. But then you tack on magical realism elements, which, if you know my reading tastes, do not work for me. So this one, not it. 2 stars. I did love Baby Teeth and also Mothered. but I'm going to talk about baby teeth. So in here you get two POVs, one's a mother and one's a daughter. The daughter is nonverbal and they misunderstand each other a lot, and it kind of gets malicious. They kind of have it out for each other at times, and it's very chilling to see how this relationship develops, how things go from there, and the crazy scenarios that they end up in. But further to that, you also kind of get the dad's dynamic, the dad or the husband's dynamic with both of them, and it's really interesting to kind of see how he's responding to this whole situation and each of them individually. All in all, this was just a really interesting exploration of this premise. I definitely enjoyed it. It definitely had me at all kinds of emotional different points, and this was a really good read. Another one that might surprise you to be on here is John Mars. I absolutely love The Passengers. It's one of my all-time favorite thrillers. This is a near sci-fi dystopian thriller in which there are self-driving cars, and 8 of them are hacked and set on a collision course with each other. The hacker wants the public to determine who in these cars should live or die based on what he's revealing about them. So you get all kinds of character reveals and character reactions from these characters in this situation. There are lots of surprises throughout. The pacing is excellent. There's also a character perspective on the outside, watching all of this happen from the public's point of view. And she's got some thoughts on self-driving cars, so she is very interesting to explore and see through as well. This one is just one of those ones that is special to me because of how much it gripped me when I read it. I absolutely loved this. 5 stars. And then we've got to talk about the third book in the same series. I guess I didn't mention, but that one's part of the One universe, and they do kind of have spoilers for each other. So The Passengers will have spoilers for the one because it's book 2. The one that was 2 stars for me is The Minders, which is book 3 in this same series. So set in the same world, but in The Minders, you have a situation where hackers are prevalent, and so governments decide instead of storing all their important data on computers, they're going to store them with specific humans who have modified DNA, and I forget exactly how they go about this, but anyhow, they've got 5 people that carry all of the government's secrets, and they are the Minders. But this one really kind of went into more of other things that I didn't appreciate as much, and I can't even remember my full thoughts on it other than I remember being halfway through and contemplating DNFing because I was so bored. So how do you go from one of my all-time favorite thrillers to a book I'm questioning DNFing right after? Wild. An author that Jake is going to be sad to see on here because he thinks they are all 5 stars, but they are not, is Lisa Jewell. And he obviously loves her books, will rave about her, but she's more atmospheric and kind of slow burn, which is not always my cup of tea. The one that I did really enjoy from her is Then She Was Gone. And this one follows the story of a mother whose daughter went missing years ago. So it's kind of her trying to figure out what happened to her daughter and also just the emotional side of that. This did have some moments that I did end up predicting, but it was chilling. There was a lot of mounting dread. You also get some perspective from the daughter and kind of figure out what happened, and what her experiences were like. So definitely this was gripping for me and I enjoyed it. 4 stars. But my 2-star read from her was Watching You. And honestly, this one was so forgettable that I don't even remember much about it other than it involves a stalker who's watching people. I do think I remember something about somebody renovating a house maybe. I don't know. They're in this neighborhood anyhow. But yeah, I was bored. I was so bored. It was very forgettable. It was slower paced. It just did not work for me in so many elements. Moving on to the one I teased about a 5-star read and a 1-star read. If you've been following older content on Jake's channel, you may already know it's Stephen King. And obviously my favorite Stephen King, the 5-star one that he smashed, Dolores Claiborne. I love this. Dolores is really funny, but more than that, she has a lot of interesting reactions, and it's really just an emotional ride to uncover her story. So essentially in here, she's in police custody. She's accused of murdering the lady that she was the caretaker for. And the reason that people suspect her in this town is because they also think she got away with murdering her husband years ago. But this is really her kind of telling the story of what actually happened and it's a lot about her experiences with both her family and the woman she was a caretaker for. It's entertaining, it's an emotional ride, there's ups and downs for sure, and it's also funny. Superior audiobook experience. Absolutely loved this. 5 stars. Then we've got to talk about Carrie. And I know people love this book. I did not. There were several reasons it didn't work for me. I think the biggest is that it chose to focus on elements that I didn't really care about. So it goes into how a certain thing is possible for a lot of the book, which I wasn't really that invested in. I just kind of wanted it to not be explained and like figured out. But more than that, some of the characters really in here did not work for me. I didn't love Carrie's inner monologue. I didn't love the sexual overtones to her inner monologue. It kind of gave me the sense of like, tell me a man wrote this book without telling me a man wrote this book kind of thing. And I get that not every woman feels that way. Like some women can read this and say like, oh yeah, that's realistic. For me, it did not feel realistic. Maybe part of that is that this is a product of its time. Like this came out in the 70s and I obviously was born in the 90s. So there's a disconnect there. But also I had issues with the side characters. Like there's a character in here that does a complete 180 and I was like, I don't understand their motivation for this at all. This feels like something that would never in a million years happen for this type of person. There's not really an explanation as to why they made this decision. And given their personality, like it stands to reason they wouldn't. So like there were things like that in here that really just didn't work for me. This was kind of a complete bust. And the sad thing is I thought I would enjoy this based on the premise. But yeah, after this was like, I think either my first or second Stephen King book that I read. And when I finished this one, I was like, I really don't understand why King is as beloved as he is. Because I didn't get it at this point. Like I really didn't. Now having read a lot more of them, like 25-ish King books, I do get it. I definitely get it. But this one, no, not it. Another author in here that has an all-time favorite book and a big disappointment is R.F. Kuang. My all-time favorite, and this is a hot take, The Burning God. So this is book 3 in the Poppy War trilogy. Most people prefer either book 2, The Dragon Republic, or book 1, The Poppy War. But this was my first foray into grimdark. And because of that, and because of how much I enjoy grimdark and reactive characters and characters that have to sit with and struggle through their choices and what has led them to this point, this was special for me in a lot of ways. Not only is it satisfying to get answers for a lot of things in the series, but it was also satisfying and very emotional to follow the character journey in here. The ending of this literally had me shook. Like, I don't very often finish a book and have to just sit there and think about what I've read and just pause. This gave me that. Like, I don't usually have book hangover tendencies, but this would be the closest experience to a book hangover that I've had. Just because of the sheer emotional elements to the ending and the feelings it gave. But when I read Babel, bored. So bored. I absolutely didn't love the way that R.F. Kuang tackled her social commentary in here. I wanted it to be something the character was feeling and something you inferred because of the situations that were playing out on page, not something that she'd like directly hit you over the head with and mentioned like over and over. The plot of this one was very lackluster in comparison to Poppy War. There wasn't as much nuance, there wasn't as much detail. It felt overly heavy-handed. There were elements to it I still liked, but I think those things coupled with the fact that she went like outside of the fantasy that Poppy War is, really kind of like tanked my enjoyment of this, and I sadly was disappointed. I do still want to give some of her other books a try. Like I want to read Yellowface and see how I feel about that, because I do feel like it could have promise and that I would enjoy it. I haven't heard people complain about the social commentary being handled the same way in that one, and I can love a book with social commentary. It really just depends how it's handled. Like for example, right now I'm reading Blood Over Brighthaven, and the way I kind of describe it, it was like, this was everything I wanted Babel to be. Like the social commentary in there is fire. I love it. It pulls on the emotions of you as you read. It shows you how these things are affecting the characters, how the characters are feeling about them. And I think that's the crux of like why it works so well for me versus how Babel did. Another author we've got to talk about is one that I picked up and loved for the first time years ago, like before I was really back into reading, and that is Suzanne Collins with The Hunger Games. So I ate this trilogy up. I loved it. I binged the entire thing in a weekend because I was obsessed and I needed to know what was going to happen. These were definitely favorite reads I devoured. And this was like before I was a reader and really read books a lot. Like at the point that I picked this up, I probably read like, I don't know, 5 books a year. Like I would have read things like 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight because they were the popular things that everyone would talk about. But while I liked certain elements of those other popular books, this one blew me away. But beyond that, I read this before it was hyped, like before I knew what it was. I randomly stumbled across the first movie of this on Netflix, watched it, enjoyed it, realized that it was a series of books, went online, found the trilogy on sale, ordered it, and then binged the heck out of it just because I needed to know what was going to happen after that ending. I kind of credit this for getting me back into reading, honestly. Like I was that obsessed with it and that absorbed into the story. So yeah, absolute favorite, 5-star. Then you have Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. What the heck was this? I thought that I was going to really enjoy this because I love a good villain origin story. I love the nuance of unpacking why a villain became the way they did, how they developed their moral compass the way that it developed. Like what emotional damage do they have? Why are they making the decisions they're making? Uncovering more of their motivations or even their backstories, or just even like events that happen to them that play into like the situations that are more relevant to the present timeline of other books now, and how you can see this like psychological parallel that could be affecting them. Like anything like that, I love. So this should have been something I adored. It really just wasn't. This felt like almost a different author had written it. Not only were there continuity issues with the series, like you have relationships that you see how the state of those relationships is in the trilogy, and then you jump back in time to Ballad and you see these relationships have a very different tone with zero explanation. And so you're just like, what in the heck? What in the heck? So that irked me. But further to that, this didn't focus on Snow as much as I wanted it to. Like, yes, it's told through his perspective. And yes, he tells you kind of like what's happening. And yes, there's a few events that kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. But this didn't have nearly the emotional depth that I wanted it to have. It didn't have the compelling plot that I wanted it to have. I mean, how do you manage to make a Hunger Games boring? Like, I don't know. But yeah, Ballad was a complete bust for me. Very different feelings on those ones. Another all-time favorite book that I've had, or I guess novella that I have, is Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And this one is better to not know much about it going in. But I will say the joy of the reading experience of this one is really kind of figuring out what's happening. So you kind of start out with some context, but it's a very kind of basic premise, and you don't really understand like how it's going to be that interesting. But as you read, the more and more of this you uncover, the more fascinating it becomes. So this is definitely set in a dystopian setting. I can definitely say that, at least. But yeah, the joy of this is like peeling back another layer to the story and connecting all the dots and figuring out how all of this came about. So definitely a very fascinating read that I love, has stood the test of time for me, even on reread, and it is still in my favorite sci-fi of all time. Oh, Ozzy's joining us. But I've also read another one of his novellas. Well, I've read several other of his novellas, but another one that I've read that did not work for me was The Expert System's Brother. And this one had kind of a very different feel to the writing. So my main issues here were that the writing felt very like clinical and detached. There was a lot more telling you things instead of showing you things through the characters experiencing them. And also just I didn't love the audio narrator, which I think played a part into it. But definitely going from like a favorite to like a 3-star read, like very frustrating. And they just had such different feelings to them, and especially through the writing. Like in Ogres, You really get to see like the characters' inner monologue and their reactions and how they're perceiving things and how they're reacting to things, how they're handling situations. It definitely felt emotionally connected. And so it was just a big disappointment to go into Expert System's Brother and really kind of have the opposite of that writing wise. So yeah, definitely did not work as well for me and belongs on this list. However, I do have high hopes for his novels. I have also heard people say they have mixed experience with his novels and series. So that would be maybe an interesting discussion to have in the comments. If you have mixed experiences with him as well, definitely let me know. Or any of these authors, obviously. But the last one we're going to talk about are also 2 books within the same series. This time it's Robert Jackson Bennett. And I absolutely love the experience of Foundry Side. I loved it even more on reread. So like the heist plot in here, the magic and discovering how that all operated, coupled with Sancha and Clef and the banter those two have, fire. Loved it. I was entertained throughout here. I had a great reading experience. But then you get to Locklands, and we have this massive time jump between the end of book 2 and book 3. Things feel very different. And while it's kind of interesting to think about like how this world would change and develop in that time span with the magic it has, the magic got too convoluted and less explained, and because of that it became less interesting. It almost just kind of felt like things could be conveniently thrown into the plot because of the magic and because of how things shaped out with it. But there were also elements to it that didn't work very well for me. It's been a while since I've read it, so I can't really remember my full thoughts. I just remember not having a great time with it, kind of hating the time jump, and kind of really not liking how the attitude towards certain elements of the story and how they were written changed. And I also have heard from other people that this is like a pattern they have with him and his trilogies, where they tend to like book 1 and 2, but then book 3 is a disappointment or a dud somehow. So I haven't yet read any of his other series. I'm interested in the new one, The Tainted Cup and A Drop of Corruption, but I'm definitely waiting to see how people feel about book 3 in that one when it comes out before jumping into it. Because I want to know going in, like, is this a common thing with this trilogy as well? Like, how should I set my expectations going into this one? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, that was it for the authors I've had some vastly different experiences with. I'm hoping that I've explained myself adequately in why I've had such varying different experiences within some of these authors' books, why some really worked for me and why others didn't. If you have authors like this, definitely let me know in the comments. Which books did you love? Which books did you hate? Do you agree with my feelings on any of these authors? Did you have mixed experiences with them? Talk to me down below about all that good stuff. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out if you want to, and have a great day. Bye!